Have a story to tell? I believe you. Ghost, cryptids, the unknown. Let's talk about it. This is my GhostCast.
Welcome, everybody, to the very first episode of My GhostCast with your host, Threz. My name is Matt Velasquez, and today we're here in the Houston Podcast Studio getting this episode, this series knocked off. And Threz, thanks for coming in and recording your first episode in our studio. And please introduce yourself, introduce your podcast, and tell us what do we have in store for this series.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Matt, thank you. You're badass. I appreciate all you do, man. And I like him. Matt, I like Matt. All right, guys. Well, this is our first episode of my GhostCast. I'm also here with my brother, D. Different faces. D is my XO, and he's yeah, guys. So this is the first episode of my GhostCast. I am Threz Gonzalez. I wanted to start this off with me being the first guy, the first episode, and telling you kind of how about why I'm doing it and the stories that kind of led up to it. You know, today we'll probably tell one story, but I'll bring some stories here and there throughout the series. I actually, since I was a kid, I've always experienced these weird things, and I didn't understand them. I really didn't. And today I still don't. You know, people are so confident in what they're talking about. They're like, no, this is exactly what's happening. I'm like, where'd you get your information? You know, it's like a Bill Burr joke. He talked about the shark. He's like, he says, did the shark tell you that? And where he gets it from is he was talking to Jerry Seinfeld, right? He's like, hey, did you, he goes, did you hear that the sharks won't attack you if you go real low, you know, below the water, you're closer to the bottom, they won't attack you. And Bill Burr goes, oh yeah, who told you that? The shark? You know? You know? So, you know, I watch all these series and taking out, and everybody is so confident in what they're saying. And I'm like, well, all right, well, how about if I create something where people are telling from their perspective, and I'll let the audience kind of go, okay, this is what I think, but here's my story, you know. And I'm open enough to hear it. I'm here, you know, I'd love to hear about all that weird stuff, because the stuff I've come across, I can't tell sometimes if, you know, we want to put everything into a category.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, oh, that's aliens, you know. There's that one guy. No, that's ghosts.
But what type of alien was it?
Yeah,
what subcategory alien did you have?
Well, let me tell you about the, you know. I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Are they sure, you know? But
no,
you know,
they're undocumented. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. That's the whole point in that, right? Well, which one is it? Which border did he cross? The atmosphere. You know? Or which dimension did he? The ozone. You know, did he cross the which dimension? Oh, it was the fourth. How can you tell? But no, yeah, I just wanted to start this off, you know, with kind of giving you an introduction. You know, I wanted my brother to be here, D, because he's been with me for a lot of stuff. We have a lot of stuff in common. I'll let him quickly introduce himself.
All right, guys. This is D, Ghost Chino. I guess for this first episode, I guess I'll be the co-host, or Ghost Chino or Cochino. One of those is gonna be fine. And I'm here to basically make stupid remarks and disprove everything he says.
Yeah, while proving it all at the same time. Yeah, he's gonna be my my Ghost Chino. But yeah, guys. So I'm starting this podcast because I want to give not everybody, because there's some weird ass people out there, but I want to give people an opportunity, you know, to be heard. Like, for example, I mean, my mother always scared me with her ghost stories about the old country, you know, about the old days where people weren't so mediated up like they are now. And I was like, man, mom's stories are messed up, right? And so I told her what I was thinking about doing, and I was going to go take pictures of a couple of places I've been to so I can add some media to what I'm doing. And I told my mom, and she goes, "You never told me some of these things." I was like, "Yeah, I didn't want to tell you because you kind of messed me up too, mommy." so my mom, she was like, "Okay, well, why don't we drive by the old neighborhood?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that, Mom." So I drove my mom to the old neighborhood, and all of a sudden, all her memories came back. And she's told me this most jacked up stories that I remember hearing about as a kid here and there through my uncles or my grandpa.
Yeah.
And Mom just filled in more detail on them. And I'm like, wow. I mean, and she's going to be on this podcast.
Yeah.
So she's all excited about it too. But, and so we wind up going to church, and we wound up talking to one of the priests about some of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, no, you don't talk about it, Mijo, because it'll come back, and you're not supposed to talk about it. And so we went to the church, and I was like, look, she thinks that we need to hide all this stuff under the rug. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you don't do that. I said, see, Mom, I told you. She's like, pues dijo te estoy diciendo. So now she's like, okay, the priest said it's okay, so I'm going to tell more stories. I was like, Mom, it's so damn cute. So, but yeah, so I wanted to give people a platform. You got pictures, media, and bring people on here and just kind of, let's get this thing started and see where it goes. I'd like it to get a little bigger. And man, people have some of the most interesting stories, man.
Mm-hmm.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
They have stories stuff that I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
It was beyond my imagination. Even Deshaun's stories. Deshaun has a lot, so he's kind of shy about his stories. But he's like the moon lily. He only shines when it's dark or something like that.
Half moon.
That half moon. I got used we were trying to ride the yellow wave, and the brown wave here. So we're trying to get the audience more interactive. Even Cindy, a friend of mine, Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
She's from mainland China, and I kind of told her what I was doing, and she's like, "Oh, I know. We have a lot." And I'm like, "Yeah, you have any?" So she sends me this long email, and I can't read any of it. So I'm like, all right, well, I gotta get an interpreter, But yeah, that's where we're going with it, guys, and I really hope you guys are along on this trip for us. So
and that sounds awesome because our society's built around storytelling.
it is,
and to be able to find common ground in a certain subject, as in the paranormal or the things that you just can't quite explain, but you can have common ground with other people.
Yeah.
Like that's going to bring up some interesting stuff where you might picture someone a certain way, and then once you really get them talking, and you're like, whoa, I never knew that side of you.
yeah. I've been running across that.
Yeah,
ever since,
because you've set up a few guests already that you'll be releasing here in a few weeks.
Yeah. I already interviewed a couple of
Mm-hmm.
people, and they had some really messed up stories.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's neat. I like to listen to those.
Yeah.
I think it works. It works on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
Being that I'm a martial arts teacher, so
Mm-hmm.
there's an aspect of interdiscipline, at least, that you should be working on, and it's using fear in a way to perhaps put yourself in check.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, So yeah, it put me in check. Some of their stories,
Right.
and people telling me some of the stuff that they went through is really neat. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
Well, excellent. Well, why don't we hit a break, because I think you wanted to hit into one of the stories that you have. We're not getting into too much detail, but we want to let people know what you have coming up. So again, this is the first episode of My GhostCast. I'm Matt Velasquez here with your host, Threz. So we'll be right back.
All right, see you guys in a bit.
Houston Podcast Studio. Podcast done right. They are your source for professional podcast production. Whether you're a seasoned podcaster or someone looking to start a podcast, they can help you create something to be proud of.
Welcome back, everybody, to the My GhostCast premiere episode. I'm Matt Velasquez here with your host, Threz Gonzalez. So we kind of hit on what the podcast will be about, and you have some interviews already lined up with several interesting guests that have some stories. But can you kind of hit on the story of yourself that you've experienced and kind of give your audience an idea of what do they have to expect out of this series?
Well, thanks, Matt, giving me this opportunity to do that. And I brought my brother D here. D.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hodge twins. No. No. So I'm going to start off one of my stories. I'm going to give a real brief one, and then I'm going to hit a main story up. Well, when I was a kid, we moved into this brand new house. I was like in middle school, just about. And and it actually is after the incident that I'm going to be talking about. And I would walk in, I would hear, when I'd sleep, I'd hear an audience. It sounded like a bunch of people having conversations in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of whispering. So I'd hear, and it was loud enough for me to hear it in my room. And of course, my room is at the back, by myself as usual. And so I was like, oh man, it's probably my parents that are having a conversation. And I'm like, I wonder what they're saying. Why are they speaking so loud?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like 2, 3 in the morning. And I was like, so I'd get up, walk slowly, and I'd walk to the living room, and I'd still hear the. And right when I would step across the plane to step into the living room, and I noticed nobody's there, it would stop. It'd be. And I'm like, don't stop on my behalf.
Someone's talking chisme about
Yeah,
you, and they're like,
I was like,
oh, he's here.
Oh, he's here. That stupid fool, that pinche niño, yeah. And I'm like, all right. So I was like, I'd walk into my parents real quick, and I go, what is that? What's that sound? It must be them. Maybe they're talking so loud in their rooms. I'd walk all the way to the room, and I hear, and I was like, that's not them. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And this would happen. So I'd walk back to my room, and sure enough, I couldn't hear my parents snoring. And about 5 minutes later or so, you just start hearing. I'm like, I'm just gonna ignore that. And this happened at least twice a week. The other times, I think I was just. It probably was every day, but I was just like. And so I would hear this stuff. So
How old were you?
I was in 7th grade.
Oh wow.
7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I mean, it went on for years. But
into your adulthood.
When I
Texas, Texas.
It was a Krispy Kreme.
Oh.
Oh, you know that's a bad ghost. It didn't say Shipley's.
It did. Just it's sprinkles.
Right. Just ask back. Okay, what kind do you want?
Oh, you know what it sounded like now that I think about it? You said that. It sounded like a Sizzler commercial, the old Sizzler commercial.
Oh yeah.
They'd be like, Sizzler. It'd be like that. So.
On fire, I'm gonna push you over the wire. Perfect timing, tight as a drum. You find the battles already won. I'm taking hold of every moment, given strength by the breath of life. I'm gonna stake my claim. I'll fight to survive.
So, this story took place when I suppose in 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade to be. I can't remember exactly, but it happened at these old apartments I used to live at. A lot of stuff happened at these old apartments, but this is the one that it scared the crap out of me. And then it was an introduction to the Ouija board for me. So there was a girl that lived in the apartments that I had a huge crush on.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had a huge crush on her. Her name was Candy. Anyway, this is how I remember it, and I was like,
She's a young
"I
stripper. I
want-
don't know.
I
She
want
got started early.
candy." Bing, 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 bing. This was late 80s, so. No, so it was neat. One thing I really appreciate about the old days, I don't see much of it now, but everybody would get together. The neighborhood kids would get together at somebody's house, like all the neighborhood kids. And this was during the summer, so it was pretty fun. People would go over, hang out. And so I remember Candy asking me if I was going to come over to her house.
Mhm.
Everyone's coming over. So I was like, sure. I came over. It just so happens it's a rainy day. And so we went in, and a lot of other kids were there. A couple of these other guys. There's this guy I knew. He looked like Chewbacca. I couldn't stand that dude. The ugliest Mexican, hybrid Mexican dude. I don't know what he was, man. But even his sister.
He was Chupacabra.
It was chupa something, man. That dude chuping it on the wrong stuff. So this guy was he was there too, and like everybody. And then there was a kid named Mark who was there. All these people come into play in the story,
Mhm.
so that's why I was like, oh, it's kind of jacked. Well, Mark is the green ass Mexican kid that all the girls like. Ugliest dude I've seen too. He looked like a bulldog. He was real thin, but he had the fattest cheeks. And he took like this, and I was like, how the hell do y'all find this guy attractive, man? So Candy liked him, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Damn it, I'm the fat attractive kid. Come on. So we wind up going there and chilling, and everyone's kind of eating the big deal about going to her house was eating the ice creams, the sticks that you put in the freezer, the Kool-Aid freezer sticks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I remember going, oh my God, we don't have those at home. I think we couldn't afford them. So I was like,
You'll have fancy colored water.
oh, they had the blue one. The blue one was the best. And I was like, ah. And so here I was trying to get those at Candy's house the whole time I was there. So while they're doing, there's other girls there. It's a good mix, but there's also a babysitter there. A babysitter was the teenager. So there were no adults. The babysitter was a teenager. Candy had a little baby sister. It was creepy as hell. But anyways, her sister was cute. The babysitter just seemed like a straight up girl. She wasn't the kind of playful girl. She wasn't like, hey, she's just doing her job.
Mhm.
She was real low key. So she's just letting the kids do what they're doing, whatever, So Candy busts out, or one of the girls busts out with a Ouija board.
Mhm.
And I'm like, whoa, I've only heard about those. And they're like, let's play, and then we'll do spin the bottle afterwards. No, did you say spin the bottle? I'm here for that. And how about
Let's hurry up with this damn Ouija thing.
Yeah. I know, right? Let's get it over with. And so, do we want a prize? And so they start playing with it, and they're like, hey, you want to play? I'm like, no, I'm good. I was kind of told to stay away from this stuff.
Mhm.
And I'm like, all right. So they're playing it. And I'm just watching. All of a sudden, the girls they start screaming. They said it started moving on its own. So they left, anyways, let's put that away. And they didn't close it out. They were claiming they were talking to somebody,
Uh-huh.
and it was really creepy. I was like, oh, man. And I was like, okay, whatever. And all of a sudden, the babysitter's missing. I'm like, she's not sitting on the couch like she was before. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I hear, everybody just started doing their own stuff. It was kind of dark. It was kind of rainy outside, or cloudy. It wasn't necessarily rainy. It was cloudy. Anyway, I hear a voice coming from the kitchen. And the kitchen, the lights are turned off. And I hear, she called me by my old name, but I won't mention it because I don't want nothing bad to happen. So I'll just say, Threz. So she called me. She had a weird, low-sounding voice. She's like, Threz, come into the kitchen. I got something for you. And I was like, she said it kind of, first, a little low-key.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh, okay. So I start walking over there slowly. And she's like, a little louder, Threz, I got something here for you in the kitchen. I have a surprise for you. And in my head, I'm like, oh, good. She's going to give me one of those ice creams. I was like, I'll start walking out confident. Oh, this is going to be great.
Ice cream.
And either the blue one, I got some, or raspa, whatever they call it, and I was like, all right, this is gonna be cool. But as I got closer, like something inside of me was like, you're in danger. You need to move back. And I'm like, what? I didn't understand
Yeah.
what I was feeling. And I was still a little kid, you know. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes, Therese. And I'm like right around the corner from the kitchen. And I'm like, my instinct, my spidey sense is like going off like there's no tomorrow. And it's like, hey, I have something in here for you. And I'm like, I'm good. I start walking back. My body's moving before I am.
Mm-hmm.
And she jumps out of the kitchen, out of the shadows, and she has a chef knife in her hand. And I'm like, she goes, I have something for you. It just starts yelling, and all the girls start screaming. And then they start screaming. So sure enough, I don't know who opened the door because I'm looking at the knife. All I remember is everybody starts running out of the apartment. Everybody, including me. And I start running.
I don't need that ice cream
Yeah.
anymore. It's okay.
What
thank you.
ice cream? Did she use that? Why did she use that ice cream to chop the tops of the ice cream? Did I leave it behind? No. And no, she ran after all of us.
Wow.
She ran right out of the apartment, and everybody scattered different directions.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and back at those apartments, you're going down the hallways or the corridors, and they're wooden fences.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't juke anywhere. You got to
Yeah.
juke into that wall, you know? And I'm like, and I'm running, right? And here I'm thinking, and I start remember slowing down, and I look back, and she's behind me. I'm like, I am running like there's no tomorrow. And that's when I learned how to do shinobi, shinobi running. You know, I learned it by accident. I learned the secret on my own. Actually, funny how that sounds, but I actually have learned a lot of my stuff through mistake, and I run upon secrets. I don't know if it's no coincidence. That's not what Sifu said, but they're all no coincidence. Only Zool. And
You are the master.
yeah, I gotta have you come in and give me the words of wisdom for the master. And I'm running, and I'm losing my balance, and that's kind of where you learn to run, and your weight's in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're almost off balance. And I'm like, and she's right behind me. She's less than 5 feet from behind me.
Yeah.
I don't know how I outran her. Well, I was kind of an athlete, kind of. And so she was behind me, and all I remember is, I'm running down this corridor, and I need to take that left, and if I take that left, it'll be out in the open where the parking lot is. And as I take that corner, and I'm like, oh my God, and then there's this huge rock in the ground, and I'm like, if I can only get over that rock, because I can't stop my direction.
Yeah. You have your momentum going.
It's too late, man. I'm like, and I'm like, that rock, and I'm like, and I get on that rock, and I don't know, I jump up, and I hear, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this is cool, and I'm like, but I'm gonna die as soon as I hit the ground. She's gonna come in and stab that ass, you know. And I just boom, and I'm like, and I just start screaming. I look up, and there's nobody there. She should have went on me. As soon as I turned that corner, right there, and I fell, she should have got me.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't there. She disappeared. Yeah, I know. I was like, because when I turned the corner, I was looking at her, and then that's when I saw the rock. I was like, this is cool. Oh, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna die. And so I run out. I get up fast as I can. She's not there. I run out to the street,
Uh-huh.
and I start looking down on both sides of the parking lot. And I start seeing some of the kids that ran off. They went through different corridors, and they're out on the street. And we run after that. Boom, we run over there, and sure enough, we all meet, and we wind up going. Candy's like, let's go to Mark's house. Whatever, man. The hell does that bulldog-looking kid do? What's he gonna do? And I'm like, they run after me, man. Come on.
Right.
And sure enough, we go to Mark's house, and Mark's like, hey, I have a plan. He talked like that too. He was like, hey, I got a plan. He's a cool dude, man. He really is.
Yeah.
He really was. But his idea was like, all right, we're gonna go back and let's go in there. And while we're there at Mark's house, we're like, we forgot the baby. We all ran out and didn't even think,
Yeah.
oh damn, the baby's still at the house.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, my baby sister. And I'm like, oh. So they're like, all right. Mark's like, I got a plan. All right, Mark, what's your plan? I have green eyes. That's the plan. Oh, see, that works for the girls. Instant savior. All right. So we're like, hey, we need to go back. And he's like, yeah, let's go back. And so he's like, all right, well, we need some weapons. And he's like, he goes, here. And he gives me this little knife, the combination Swiss knife.
Oh, yeah,
Swiss
yeah.
knife.
There's a pocket.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
To me, it sounded like Mark's the kind of guy who would carry nunchucks.
Yeah, they were in his cheeks. No, he did have a bat later that had like a nail in it. So
Oh, nice.
West Side Story, he was, or The Outsiders, right? And so he's like, all right, let's do this. And Marcus is with us, and we're all heading over there. And Marcus gets the bat. Mark, he is this big old knife. And I got this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. You know what? Am I going to carve it into some wood or something?
If you need to screw something in
Yeah,
or open
dude,
a
I
can,
know.
you're set.
If I little nail scissors to cut somebody's t-shirt open, that'd be all right.
It's all about the toothpick, man.
Is that what that is? I was always wondering what that was. So we head over there. We head back. We're coming in. Doors wide open. All right. And we're sitting there. I mean, Sherry, we look in. We're standing outside the apartment door. And we look, and that girl is sitting on one of the sofas,
Mm-hmm.
just with her eyes closed and her hair down over her face, like the scary stuff
Mm-hmm.
you see about.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to see it in real life. This chick's sitting there like this. The knife is on right next to her hand. She's not holding it anymore, and her head's down. And I'm like, all right. And so Mark said, all right, again, idea. Jez, you go in first. I'm like, dude, I got this little thing. What am I going to do? Just, hey, you need anything
It's okay, I'm
screwed?
watching you with my green eyes.
Yeah. I have green eyes. I can't die. You have the red shirt from Star Trek. You need to go in there. I was like, dude, you're the dude. Come on, you go in. Hey, why don't we all go in at the same time? I was like, yeah, that's a better idea. How about that, man? So dude, as soon as we step over the threshold, her head comes up. And she's like, what are y'all doing? Like, her voice was back to normal. The look in her face was back to normal. And she's like, why do you have the door open? I go, where's everybody at? What's this? And she just started just questioning everything. She didn't remember any of that stuff. And I'm like, oh. And then we got the baby, and then I left. I went back home. I didn't see what happened.
Yeah.
All I know is that later on, they said they got rid of her, and she got in trouble, and possibly police were involved, you know. And I'm like, well, nobody questioned me about any of the chasing after me with the knife. She didn't chase after anybody else, you know. So it's little stories like that add to the accumulation of my intrigue to these stories, because I'm like, oh, you know, there's more to this story. I'll tell it another time.
Yeah.
There's a second and even third piece to this story. And so, you know, the more you talk to somebody, the more you're like, oh, yeah, that was connected to that, wasn't it? Yeah, that was.
Huh.
You know, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're only going to keep ramping it up from here in your storytelling, huh?
Yeah, because I have some smaller ones that are just little stuff, but all the stories I have, they escalate.
Yeah.
And these are like the beginning ones.
Oh, jeez.
You know. And
Well, I think you got a lot set up for this podcast. Then.
we do, man. And I'm looking forward to hearing from the audience. I mean, I really want to give the audience an opportunity to give them a voice.
Yeah.
You know, for them to hear their stories.
Yeah.
Or if I already have some people that want to remain anonymous.
Sure.
Because they hold high positions, and they're like, "Hey,
we don't want to be judged.
I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be judged." And I'm like, "Well, we really appreciate it." As I was telling D, is I have people already writing me that I'm really glad you're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm like, there's other venues out there, but not everybody feels comfortable with this. You know, and I'm hoping people to give a little bit of to give people the voice, and also, you know, add a little humor to it, a little bit of where you can relax and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, D, anything?
Yeah. No, I think this is a good platform because all this supernatural stuff is kind of shunned by modern society. A lot of people feel like they can't come out and talk about this stuff because they'll be thought of as weirdos, because you got people out there and you're like, I believe in science. And yeah, well, how can your science explain this shit? Give me the damn answer to that. There are a lot of people out there, they experience so many weird things that can't be explained through science, as far as we can tell so far. And we can only leave it up to our imaginations as to what the hell's going on. And I think there's so many people who are just keeping it in. Maybe they don't feel like they have in somebody trustworthy they can confide in, or maybe they just feel like they don't want to be a freak, and stand out and be thought of as a weirdo. So this is a good platform. I think hopefully it'll be kind of a step in a direction where people can be more open about this stuff.
And maybe it'll be kind of therapeutic and give some people some closure to some things they were never able to talk about before.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. It's done that for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. That's
And
amazing.
hopefully along the way, maybe we can find some answers together.
Yeah.
And
Very
if
cool.
not, you got us. Have your back. I'm
Right.
at least open to listening.
Yeah.
You
Excellent. So
Mhm.
tell everyone a little bit more about how often are you going to be releasing these episodes?
Right now, I'm looking at releasing once a week.
Okay.
So possibly every either Monday or Wednesday. It just depends on.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get as many episodes ahead of time.
Yeah.
Edited try to get some quality out of them, I'm trying to put out at least once a week. When things get up and going, perhaps twice a week, and then go on from there.
Very cool. Very cool. And we're starting here on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, we're starting on
Excellent.
the YouTube channel, and whatever this sounds like, if I can set it up to the podcast by itself, it'd be great too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a great podcast. It's very niche. It's going to really hit a very good community.
Yeah.
And so is there anything else you want to say just to your audience in your first episode, like about your podcast and what they have in store coming up?
Yeah, we have a lot of pieces coming up, and I want to get more inclusive with the audience. Any media that you guys be interested, if you want to tell your story, we're going to be having ways for you to share stuff through Facebook and what have you. Get our website up and going. The different venues we want to bring in videos where we have people get their reaction to certain things. Somebody I prefer to always bring in non-believers.
Yeah.
And all right, how do you explain that? I believe in science. Or the science.
we need
explain why I
to
punch you in
have
the eye.
a hot button just for Deshaun. Like, I believe in science.
That was the green.
Yeah, so that's where we're going on it, and there's more to come. I just need to make sure that I have enough time to put all the stuff in. I really am trying to bring this out for everybody to share the stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so I think it's important for everyone to follow in the comments section, follow the description for any links that will be coming out for social media groups, possibly for future platforms that you can follow you on.
Yeah, we'll put them all up there, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Awesome.
And then, whatever else we can get, if we can get uploaded on iTunes or any of these others.
Yeah.
And see what people like the sound of my voice. Welcome.
We're going to have someone driving, listening to your podcast and just get scared.
I wanted people to get scared and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Get scared. And of course, you had the sexiness to my voice. And then I'm so scared. Netflix in a movie, let's listen to scary stories. Hey, man, you'd be surprised that stuff works.
Well, this is awesome. I think you're going to have a great podcast. This is a great first episode. You've set yourself up for some amazing storytelling. And so I think, I thank you for coming in and definitely, recording with us today. And, we look forward to hearing more of your episodes going forward.
Yeah. Anything, D?
Yeah, I just want to thank Matt here for Houston Podcast Studio. If you guys are in the Houston area and you guys want to get in on some podcast stuff too, definitely check them out. They're great people. Matt's an awesome guy. I met him today.
He's
I
so
appreciate
awesome.
it.
He's amazing. So, thank you
Yeah.
again, Matt.
That's because you just met me today. That's why you think I'm awesome.
Yeah, wait till he
till
knocks a
tomorrow.
drink. When you have drinks with him and he knocks in hors d'oeuvre and you're shit,
Right.
hey, man. That's how I met him.
I got good coffee, so we're good.
Right.
Yeah, I want to thank again Houston podcast, Matt over here. These guys are awesome. Don't forget to be listening to 9:20 a.m.
I appreciate it.
They're
Appreciate it,
connected
yeah.
with that. Yeah, come on through. He's a great host, and we appreciate it.
Thanks.
Matt.
Thank you. So y'all stay tuned. You subscribe, and Therese will see you on the next episode.
Yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll come up with something wittier next time.
Awesome.
I'm your host, Therese Gonzalez, with my GhostCast, and my guests are Matt and
Cochino.
Cochino or Ghost Chino.
Ghost Chino.
All right, guys. Thanks,
awesome.
man.
Thanks, y'all.
Uh-huh.